This podcast is brought to you by Spice Rum devotees Baron Samity. Like us, they share a desire for a vibrant and thriving nightlife and celebrate the creativity that only comes to life after dark. Hey, you're listening to the Stoney Roads podcast. I'm Andrew Cotman. This is the story of the rise and fall of one of Australia's most successful electronic music festivals, Stereosonic. Running from 2007 to 2015 in 5 capital cities, with tens of thousands of punters, Stereosonic was named Australia's most popular festival by several publications and was a crowd favourite. At the height of its success, it sold 280,000 tickets across the country. They even clocked 70,000 attendees to a one-day Sydney event, an unbeaten record in Australian festival history. But our focus is on what happened behind the scenes. In 2015, the company faced a wave of legal troubles, parent company bankruptcy, and 2 tragic young deaths at the event. In the aftermath, Stereosonic went under, and plenty of their competitors closely followed. Behind it all was Richie McNeill. He's been credited with the birth of Aussie electronic music festivals, and his 30-plus year career has left him with one hell of a story to tell. So he spoke to the Stereosonic founder on what they did right and what went wrong. Thankfully for you, he held nothing back. In the 80s, a 16-year-old Richie McNeill was getting snuck into clubs around Melbourne by an older mate from school. By the time he hit year 12, the music had him hooked. He started working in the venues as a busboy, then a DJ, then a promoter, meeting some important industry characters along the way.
While I was doing that, I was doing software engineering at uni. I got to know a lot of industry people, regulars, and started writing down their names and addresses and stuff, and started a newsletter and a database that I built from my computer programming skills called Interface. And I started like a fanzine I'd send out to everybody every month. And I started a club night on a Wednesday night in Melbourne. And that was in, I think it was 90.
After starting a local club night at Star Bar in South Melbourne, Richie got his first DJ residency at a club called Pure at the Palace in 1991. The gig came from Mark James, who eventually became a director of Future Entertainment, key players later in the story. This club is where he got to know the team from Mushroom Group. Today, Mushroom's brand ranges from labels to booking to management and events. They were already a big deal in the 90s, so Richie obviously hassled them for a job at the company.
I just hassled them every Friday night. They'd come down and party at Pure. They just thought I was some young sort of punk DJ partying and not really serious. I said, look, just give me a go. And the job came up in the warehouse.
From packing boxes in the warehouse, Richie worked his way up to dance manager at Mushroom Group. From there, he founded Hardware, a Melbourne techno label and events group of legend status. It's through these roles that he developed some impressive contacts, knowledge, and power in the music industry. He knew that dance music was about to capture the masses in a huge way. When Richie was planning his first festival, Big Day Out was the only large-scale touring festival in Australia. So when Big Day Out took a break in 1998, he linked up with Cream event promoters Jeremy Jolson and Terry Thompson to fill that gap. Together, they threw one of the country's first major dedicated dance music festivals, Apollo 1998. They pulled the financial support of Michael Koppel, now chairman of Live Nation Australasia, and an incredible lineup, including Daft Punk, Basement Jaxx, and Speedy J. But the timing was just slightly off. They'd launched 1 year before those artists really blew up in 99. Because of that, Apollo ended up losing money. Next came 2 Tribes, the first electronic music festival to tour the entire country. One half of the event was owned by Future Entertainment, whose name you might recognise from Future Music Festival, Good Life and Summer Days. The other half was Hardware, the record and events label Richie established in 1994. 2 Tribes lasted 6 years, but Richie says that their difference in musical and ethical directions caused a rough split.
Future Entertainment were pissing me off. I folded the whole thing and just said 2 Tribes is no more because I was 50-50 partner and I could do that. It couldn't go ahead without me, and we had a dispute.
After Richie left the company in 2006, 2 Tribes was reborn as Future Music Festival, Stereosonic's main competitors. By 2007, he formed Totem Industries and was hoping to team up with One Love Music, who had been throwing successful weekly club nights across Australia for years.
I'd caught up with Draw and Raph and Frank I'd known for years at One Love and said, look, you guys got a good club night thing going. I can run a festival. I've been doing it for years. Let's do a festival. And came up with the name Stereosonic. And then we, I said, look, we've got a lineup. Myself and Simon had already put a decent lineup together and they were like, nah. And then I said, all right, we'll do it ourselves then. And then they were like, all right, if you're going to do it yourself and you're that gung-ho on it, we're in.
With a stacked debut lineup of Booker Shade, Armin van Helden and Fetty Legrand, One Love finally jumped on board. Richie's drive and experience and One Love's national club following made them the perfect partners to bring a dance-focused festival to the masses. The launch of Stereosonic was the perfect example of right time, right place, right people. In 2007, dance music was growing in a way that had never been seen before. Rather than just appealing to club hunters, the combination of pop and electronic meant its commercial success was skyrocketing. Aussie commercial radio was blasting David Guetta, Avicii and Swedish House Mafia. That meant the average Australian would hear it on their way to work, bump it up in the charts and of course, want to see it live. Stereosonic was there to fill that demand.
It was a great result. We did better than we expected. We did just under 15,000 people. We thought we'd do 10 or 11 or 12. Good for a first year, successful money-wise. There was no issues. Everyone had a great time. And we thought, as soon as we did the first one, we just felt the vibe was really special. The feedback in Melbourne was just insane. I think that's when Future got worried and really kind of thought, fuck, we have to stop this.
Although the two tribes split wasn't a friendly one, for the first year, Stereosonic and Future Music didn't really butt heads. Future Music Festival kept the March time slot they'd always claimed during Two Tribes. Stereosonic went for the opposite time of the year where Richie had always seen a gap in the market. It was the end of uni, school break, start of summer, November slot. With so much time between the two festivals, there was more than enough space for them to coexist. The peace deal between Future and Stereosonic ended abruptly in 2008. Future Entertainment was planning to bring an international festival, Global Gathering, to Australia. It was less an issue of them entering the market and more about the date they chose, the same weekend as Stereosonic. In a 2014 interview, Richie told The Music that Future Entertainment and Stereosonic had a verbal agreement never to try and poach each other's dates.
Yeah, Global Gathering was kind of on top of us, not on the same weekends actually, or different weekends at least. They were originally on the same couple of dates, and I remember I reached out to the guy from Global Gathering, but just saying, hey, I spoke to a few artists, managers that are friends of yours and mine that I tour. They'll vouch for me, I'm not a bad bloke. I know who you are and your brand, and this is just a ploy on our weekend. Can you not? I don't think it's good for your brand coming over the top of an Australian brand, on the same two weekends. If that's going to be an entry into the market, it's just it's not good. It's not good for the scene. It's certainly not good for my business. And I don't think it's good for you because I think date-wise, there's plenty of other dates and there's room for all of us. And he sort of said, look, you know what, let me just do some research. I'll come back to it. He did call me back a couple of days later and said, look, I've spoken to Future and Mark and they're my partners down there. I have to be guided by them. So it was just whatever. So we just basically said, all right, well, I've given you a heads up. It is what it is. And then they went ahead and did it on the same two weekends and lost millions of dollars and didn't come back.
In the same year, Totem Industries and One Love Music made their partnership official, merging into the Totem One Love group. In 2009, Stereosonic expanded from Melbourne to Brisbane, Perth, Sydney and Adelaide. In 2011, their Sydney ANZ Stadium event drew a crowd of 70,000 people, and it still stands as the largest single-day festival in Aussie history. In 2012, Stereosonic sold over 200,000 tickets nationwide. This led to some memorable moments, as Richie recounts.
I have to say the craziest one with the most incredible crowd response and just pure raw energy was the bloody Beatroots main stage when they were in their peak. It was just carnage and we were pulling people over the barrier. There was shit flying everywhere. People were throwing stuff in the air, crowd surfing, moshing. It's just, you know what I mean? I was just in awe. I would say when we had Calvin, and Avicii on, that particular year, it was just massive. I mean, Avicii had a hit with Levels. Seeing 55,000 people out of 70,000 people in ANZ Stadium that year when Avicii was at his peak and Levels came on and stuff, and it's just the crowd roar was just incredible. And then I remember that year because Armin van Buuren had played in Canberra and flown to Bankstown and we put him on a chopper and remember the chopper coming in over the top of that ANZ Stadium that year and doing a bit of a loop. And everyone's like, ah. And Armin had filmed it and showed me when he got off the chopper, like the video footage of everyone kind of looking up and going, ah. It was just, it was awesome.
It turns out that the punters had some memorable moments too.
My mate and I were chilling and actually ready to go home at Stereo 2012. As we were sorting out our taxi, Dave approached us and we kind of just clicked.
Yeah, hit it off.
Yeah, so basically now in 2020, we're newlyweds and expecting our first baby in December. Almost 8 years after meeting each other, a little girl.
Yeah.
So keep an open mind, peeps. You never know where you're going to meet the love of your life.
I'll always remember, I think it was 2012, there was kind of a whole operation going on of fence jumping. So basically it started with one guy quickly trying to scale the fence and security mobbing on this dude. Little did we know that guy was kind of a decoy, and there was actually a big bull rush of like 50 people just mobbing this fence, climbing over. The fence tipped over as they climbed because there were so many people going at once, and security chasing after him. But pretty much once you get through, you saw people just taking their shirt off and disappearing into the crowds, and then they kind of made it. So a lot of people got through that day.
On the back of this success, Stereosonic caught the attention of SFX Entertainment, an LA-based live events conglomerate that owned festivals and companies like Tomorrowland, Electronic Zoo, and Beatport. In October of 2013, SFX Entertainment released their offer to purchase Totem One Love Group for $75 million, and the life-changing deal went through.
At one point, I didn't want the deal to go through because particular sort of structural issues with where I thought it was going to go and bits and pieces. But in the end, we got the deal across and we were all sort of happy, the 5 partners. I mean, it was amazing. It was a big time in dance music and it was a massive opportunity. But, compared to what ID&T got paid and what they made for the company, we made a lot more money than they did for the company. And, it was just crazy, the money that was going around. But on the model that we had and the way it was going and the potential expansion into Asia, they would have recouped that in, 5 or 6 or 7 years kind of thing. So it was a great deal. It changed our lives. It was the right moment, the right time, the right deal, and a lot of luck. Before we sold it, we had a pretty good 5 or 6 years before, and every year we made money, which was unheard of, like launching a festival and making money every year. We were already doing sort of pretty well. So we'd already had some success and, just sort of went along as normal. I didn't go out and buy a Porsche the next day. I'm still wearing the same clothes every day, cap, hoodie, Uniqlo, $40 hoodie and jeans. And I wear the same shit every day. I'm a simple man. We weren't very flashy and that sort of thing. There's some promoters out there running events and they're just all about Instagram posts with this artist and that artist and blah, blah, blah. And it's all an image thing for them and whatever. And we weren't like that. We were like, such an interesting mix. We're all from blue collar, hardworking families. So for us, when it happened, it was a bit surreal, like holy shit, wow.
Just before the sale of Totem One Love, Stereosonic announced plans to expand into a 2-day event in each city. It's something Richie had been pushing for a long time, with festivals in Europe and America as the inspiration.
We went on the 2-day model, every city, trying to bring us more in line with what was happening in the States and Europe with these multi-day things. And in the end, it was not the right move and it went back to 1 day because the Australian market just couldn't handle it. It was probably a bit too early for them. And also Australians just go hard, they're just such bloody maniacs as punters. Artists would come out and go, gee, the Australian crowd, they're quite messy and they could go hard, especially in Sydney, In Europe, they sort of pace themselves across these 2, 3, 4 day things, like in Melbourne, for Stereosonic that year when we went 2 days, they sort of paced themselves, but they kind of didn't, they just came later and just went harder for a shorter period on Saturday and harder for the shorter period on Sunday. I think the 2-day thing, the numbers were great, but that was a bit of a concern. And so I was really an advocate that was championing that decision within the team. And, of course we all voted on it. We all went through it together, but I was the one that was kind of really pushing for that. And in hindsight, it was probably a mistake. We still made amazing money that year of the 2 days, but the second year when I wasn't there, it didn't do the numbers. I don't think the lineup was strong. I'm not saying if I was there, it would have been better, but if I was there, it would have been better. You know what I mean?
According to Richie, when they launched the 2-day model in 2013, the Aussie festival circuit had entered a bubble phase. From Field Day to Laneway, Park Life and Groove in the Moo, the competition was growing and artist prices were rising. International headliners had plenty of options when shopping for touring festival dates, so every detail of their slot was up for debate.
It got to a point with festivals where they were almost being programmed by artists and agents. We're like, well, we're the promoter here and we know the market better than anybody and we know what's best and this is the best time for you and the best flow musically for the stage on the day and you're not going to clash with this and that. And I think that year was the start of, it getting difficult to put festival lineups together and keep agents happy because it became this arms race, where agents, it wasn't just about the money, it was and what stage and what set time, who else on the lineup, who's on at that time. And the amount of questions that you would get to book an artist was, 3 times as many questions as you would in the middle 2000s because it became this competition. Oh, how much pyro has he got? Show me what, pyro Tiesto's got. And then, you'd sort of say, well, I can't send you the order. It's confidential, but this is roughly what it is. And that order more. And then people would order more. And it just became this pyrotechnics bloody war and set times became issues. And I want to play on that day, the 2 days, I want to play on that day with so-and-so. I don't like playing with him. And it just was like, oh, fuck. So I think, the 2-day thing was tough because of those sort of politics and those sorts of things.
After almost 30 years of non-stop work, Richie took 18 months off in 2014. While he was gone, Stereosonic tackled one final year of the 2-day model before backtracking to the single-day event for their final year in 2015.
And that's part of the reason why I left too. I was burnt out, the corporatization and just reporting and that sort of thing. Look, to be honest, compared to some of the other public listed companies, they kind of left us to do what we needed to do and didn't meddle too much in what we were doing. But there was definitely a bit of a change. And I think it wasn't just the corporatization and that sort of thing, but it was probably a combination of that and the explosion that had been and, getting a bit sick of dance music and just burnt out that I needed a break. I had 18 months off and the one thing I was trying to think, what am I going to do next? And I've just been burnt out. That was my uni break. It was kind of like I went straight from high school into uni, into partying, into DJing. I never had that break that a lot of people have. That was my gap year when I left Totem One Love Group and Stereosonic for 14, 15 months. Everyone's like, oh, you're going to be back in 3 months. We know you, you're a workaholic. You love it too much. You'll be back. I was like, no, I won't. How much do you want to bet? I had my 3rd kid that year. And I just wanted to travel with them and I wanted to have that gap year, that year off. And we went to Armin van Buren's manager, Dave, who I'm really close with, went to his wedding in Ibiza. That was a fantastic 10 days there. Went to New York, visiting my old agent friends and birthday parties and just kind of went to LA. Of course, I had lots of people saying, what are you doing next? Come work for us.
Although he had plenty of job offers, Richie returned to SFX after his break and things had changed a lot. His role was redirected away from the Stereosonic team and towards managing Beatport and SFX events in Asia. He liked the position, but when things took a downturn, it was hard to watch what he'd built fall apart from afar.
I wanted to see it succeed. It was my baby, just like Two Tribes was and Apollo before that. When you grow something from the beginning and you put all your heart and soul into it, and it's part of your DNA, you want to see it succeed, whether somebody else owns it or not. And it was a strange and difficult time.
In 2015, the SFX stock price crashed from $13 to just 91 cents. In the same year, Stereosonic hit the media for all the wrong reasons. Sylvia Choi, 25, and Stephen Woodward, 19, lost their lives in drug-related deaths at the Sydney and Adelaide events, respectively.
Good evening. Adelaide police are searching for the source of drugs at the Stereosonic Music Festival that left 1 man dead and 2 other people fighting for life. 9 News understands the 19-year-old who died had tried to get first aid. His family has pleaded with organisers to do more to keep young people safe.
Politicians, police, media and the community were both heartbroken and outraged, and the backlash came right back to the promoters. There were even calls for an inquest into the responsibility held by Totem One Love. Stereosonic says that they always work closely with police, health services and security services across the country. In a statement on the deaths, Stereosonic said,
"Whilst every effort has been made to protect you and keep you safe with our teams of professional medical and security staff, you as individuals need to make smart choices and understand the risks you are taking.
On a broader scale, Richie said that the punter culture at Aussie music festivals has some toxic elements that can put people in dangerous situations.
Australians just, there's this whole bravado thing of, I can go harder than you and that sort of thing, and a bit of that sort of, if you go hard or go home type mentality sort of exists, and it's just unnecessary.
Outside of this loss, SFX International was quickly losing money. In 2016, they announced that they'd entered Chapter 11 bankruptcy and had immediately put a chokehold on the festivals under their wing.
When they went to that Chapter 11 bankruptcy, and Draw, who was the CEO of SFX Totem at the time, knew that they didn't have the money to pay those bills coming from HQ in the States. It was kind of like trading like insolvent. And his lawyer said, look, you knowing this information, Draw, puts you at risk as a director. So he had to resign knowing that this money wasn't coming. And so Bob rings me up and says, look, I know you're working on Asia and Beatport, but can you, and I was in Japan snowboarding with my family in early Jan, and he said, can you get back to Australia, have a look at the numbers and see if you think Stereosonic can continue?
In the end, Richie just couldn't pull together the numbers for the festival to go ahead. When trying to build the 2016 lineup, booking agents turned them away because of the SFX bankruptcy.
There was a show on in March that Jeanette and I did, like this trance thing, and there were some artists there. We wanted to make sure they got paid, and that show went. And it was literally about 3:00 in the morning at that gig. I was sitting in the office at Melbourne Park talking to Jeanette going, this is fucked, I can't do it. And then I wrote an email that night, waited till the gig was over and sent it at 7:00 in the morning on the Monday, and resigned from my second attempt of working with SFX. And that was the end of Stereosonic. I think they tried to sell it to Paul Dainty, went through the building. They tried to sell it to a few promoters out here, sort of shopped it around for a month or so, tried to get me to come back, tried to sue me in April, sent me a legal letter. It got all really messy. And then I think by about May or June, they went into receivership in Australia, voluntary administration, and the bankruptcy thing was going on full pelt in America, and that was the end of Stereosonic. It was sadness. Like I definitely was, I was disappointed because, it was such a great event and a big part of Australia, and other things started sort of falling off too at that time as well. And I also, like Summer Days had finished, Good Vibrations had gone, Fuzzy had a couple of bad years with Parklife and rebranded it to Listen Out. Future Music was gone. Things were starting to sort of fall off, and it was like when Stereosonic kind of went down, it was a big moment, I think, in Australian music. Big Day Out fell over. Soundwave was on the way out. It was just a dark, shitty time, right, with what was going on. It was sad because I think Stereosonic was still a bit of a beacon and something for people to look forward to at the end of the year. And love it or hate it, with some of the shit memes about muzzers and whatever it was and shredding and this sort of thing. Like, it was a pillar, it was a real launch of summer and something that, it helped a whole industry.
In 2019, Hardware, One Love and Live Nation reunited to put on Festival X. The lineup felt like a modern answer to Stereosonic, with acts like Calvin Harris, Armin van Buuren and Steve Aoki right alongside Lil Pump, Trippie Redd and Alice in Wonderland. It's reflective of how much music has changed in Australia over the past decade, as rap rises to the top and merges itself with electronic music. Richie knows that popular taste will continue to evolve and sees dance music returning to its peak in the next 5 to 10 years.
Obviously, it's phased out a little bit and the music has changed, and some of those things are slowly, the market is slowly contracting a bit, with things like FOMO and all that sort of stuff. And, there's going to be more of that stuff, especially now with COVID as well. I think that era, will it come back again? I don't know. Music goes in cycles though. Maybe in 5 years' time, 10 years' time, it'll come back, and Festival X, I think, how we're adapting that with music now, with hip-hop and other bits and pieces, we're just promoting our popular music festival across all different genres. And I think at some point, this, commercial dance music will come back on the radio again. People are going to be sick of hip-hop in 5 years' time, you know what I mean? It's the cycle of life.
Since the global pandemic hit, Australian festivals were left with no idea where they stand. With international travel and mass gatherings out of the question, festivals were forced to postpone or cancel their 2020 dates. Sadly, some may not ever return because of the lost revenue. But when the festival industry eventually recovers, we think Richie will continue to be a big part of it. His impact and influence on Australia's electronic music scene is undeniable.
It was really exciting to, be a part of that and know all those artists and, you know, felt that I've contributed to a lot of their sort of careers and their starts and things in Australia and meet all these great people and promoters and people along the way, and arseholes. I met plenty of arseholes in Australia along the way as well, as you do. But it's been a very colourful 30, you know, well, it's 30 years of hardware since Hardware 1. It's been a long road, but I love the music.
In 2021, Richie's company Hardware is celebrating their 30th anniversary. There'll be a book and film coming out to document the journey of the record label and events company that has played such a significant role in Australia's dance music history. This podcast was recorded at Forbes Street Studios in the heart of Sydney. It's created by Andrew Cotman and David Ross. Written and researched by Emily Carmona. Our audio engineer and producer is Dan McHugh.
Thanks again to Baron Samedi Spiced, Rum Resurrected.